In March of 2008, Nathan Brooks heard a knock on his door. He was 70 years old, living alone in a small house on the edge of town. He wasn't expecting anyone. When he opened the door, 4 strangers stood on his porch. They were dressed in expensive suits, carrying themselves with confidence. But there was something about their faces. Something familiar. Nathan squinted. His memory wasn't what it used to be. And then one of them smiled. A woman with kind eyes. She said just 3 words. "Mr. Brooks, it's us." 25 years earlier, in 1983, Nathan Brooks taught 4 orphans how to play the piano. He spent 2 years with them, teaching them scales and chords, teaching them Chopin and Debussy, teaching them that music could be a home when you had none. And then one day they were gone, separated by circumstance, scattered across the country. He never saw them again, until that day in 2008, when those 4 orphans came back. But they weren't orphans anymore. They were world-renowned concert pianists, and they were there to repay a debt Nathan didn't even know existed. This is the story of how a broken man used music to heal 4 broken children, and how 25 years later, those children used music to save him. To understand what happened in 2008, you need to go back to 1983, back to when Nathan Brooks was 45 years old, and his world had just fallen apart. Nathan had been married to Helen Brooks for 18 years. She was a teacher. He was a piano instructor. They lived in a modest house in Ohio. They didn't have much money, but they had each other. And that was enough. They tried for years to have children, but it never happened. So they poured their love into their students instead. Nathan taught private piano lessons. Helen taught 3rd grade. They talked about adopting someday. Someday when they had saved enough money. Someday when the time was right. But someday never came. In February of 1983, Helen was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 3 months later, she was gone. Nathan was 45 years old, and suddenly he was alone. The house felt too big, too quiet. The only sound was the piano in the living room, the same piano where he had taught hundreds of students over the years. The same piano where Helen used to sit and listen while he played Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. After Helen died, Nathan couldn't bring himself to play that piece anymore. Every note reminded him of what he'd lost. For months, he barely functioned. He canceled his private lessons. He stopped answering the phone. He sat in the empty house and wondered what the point of any of it was. Music had always been his refuge. But now even music felt hollow. It was Father Michael from St. Joseph's Community Center who pulled him out of that darkness. Father Michael had known Nathan and Helen for years. He'd officiated their wedding. He'd said the prayer at Helen's funeral. And in September of 1983, 6 months after Helen's death, he showed up at Nathan's door with a proposition. There was an orphanage across town, St. Mary's Home for Children. It was old, underfunded. The kids there didn't have much. No art classes, no music programs, just the basics. Food, shelter, school. Father Michael wanted to start a music program. Nothing fancy, just a few hours a week, teaching kids how to play piano. And he wanted Nathan to do it. Nathan's first instinct was to say no. He could barely take care of himself. How could he possibly take care of anyone else? But Father Michael was persistent. He said something Nathan never forgot. He said Helen loved those kids. You know she did. She always talked about volunteering there. Maybe this is how you honor her memory. So Nathan said yes. Not because he wanted to, but because Helen would have wanted him to. He started the following week, every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, 2 hours each session. At first he didn't expect much. He figured he'd teach a few kids some basic scales. Maybe 1 or 2 would stick with it. Most would lose interest. That's how it usually went. But then he met the 4 kids who would change everything. St. Mary's Home for Children was not a happy place. It was a 3-story brick building on the south side of town. The paint was peeling. The heat barely worked in winter. There were 43 kids living there in 1983. Most of them had been abandoned. Some had lost their parents to accidents or illness. All of them carried scars you couldn't see. The staff did their best, but they were overworked and underpaid. The kids were fed, they went to school, but there wasn't much love. There wasn't much hope. Just the slow march of days until they aged out of the system or got placed in a foster home. Whichever came first. When Nathan arrived for his first session, he sat up in the common room. There was an old upright piano in the corner, out of tune, missing a few keys, but it was better than nothing. Father Michael had told him to expect maybe 10 or 12 kids, but when the doors opened, only 4 showed up. 4 kids, all between the ages of 9 and 12, all carrying the weight of worlds too heavy for children to carry. The first was Sarah, 12 years old, tall for her age, dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She sat in the front row with her arms crossed. Her expression was blank, unreadable. Sarah had lost both her parents in a car accident when she was 9. A drunk driver ran a red light. Her parents died instantly. She had no other family, no aunts, no uncles, no grandparents. So she ended up at St. Mary's. For 3 years, she'd been there, watching other kids get adopted, watching them leave, while she stayed behind. Sarah didn't talk much. The staff said she used to be a bright, cheerful kid. But after the accident, something inside her shut down. She went through the motions. School, chores, meals. But she was just existing, not living. The second was David, 10 years old, small and wiry, couldn't sit still. He bounced his leg, tapped his fingers on the chair, looked everywhere except at Nathan. David had been at St. Mary's since he was 3. His mother had dropped him off one day and never came back. He didn't remember her face, didn't remember her voice. All he knew was that she didn't want him, and that knowledge had turned into a restless energy that never stopped. David was the class clown, always joking, always moving, anything to avoid feeling the pain underneath. The third was Emma, 9 years old, the youngest of the group. Blonde curls, big blue eyes that looked like they'd seen too much. Emma's mother had died of cancer when Emma was 7. Her father couldn't handle raising a child alone. He drank. He got violent. Social services took Emma away. She'd been at St. Mary's for 2 years. And in those 2 years, she barely spoke. She was terrified of everything. Loud noises, sudden movements. Adults. Especially men. When Nathan walked into the room, Emma shrank back in her chair. Her hands trembled. She looked like she wanted to disappear. The fourth was Tommy, 11 years old. Years. Thick brown hair, a permanent scowl on his face. Tommy's story was the worst of all. His parents didn't die. They didn't lose custody. They simply didn't want him. When Tommy was 8, they drove him to St. Mary's and dropped him off. They told the staff they couldn't afford another kid. They had 2 younger children. They chose them, not Tommy. And they never looked back. Tommy had been at St. Mary's for 3 years, and in those 3 years he'd built walls so high that no one could get through. He was angry at his parents, at the world, at God. He didn't trust anyone, didn't believe in anyone. And he certainly didn't believe that some old piano teacher was going to make any difference in his life. Nathan looked at the four of them. Sarah with her blank stare, David with his restless energy, Emma with her fear, Tommy with his anger. And he realized something. These kids didn't need a piano teacher. They needed someone who saw them, someone who didn't give up. So he didn't start with scales. He didn't start with theory. He sat down at the old upright piano and he played. He played Debussy's Clair de Lune, soft, gentle. The notes floated through the room like a lullaby. And for 3 minutes and 47 seconds, those four kids stopped being orphans. They stopped carrying their pain. They just listened. When Nathan finished, the room was silent. Sarah's arms were no longer crossed. David had stopped fidgeting. Emma was leaning forward. Even Tommy's scowl had softened. Nathan looked at them and said, "Music doesn't fix everything. But it helps. It helped me when I lost someone I loved. Maybe it can help you too." That was the moment everything changed. The first 3 months were the hardest. Nathan quickly realized that teaching these kids wasn't like teaching his private students. Those kids came from stable homes. They had parents who encouraged them. They practiced because they wanted to. These four kids came with trauma, with distrust, with 1,000 reasons to quit before they even started. Sarah was the easiest. She had natural talent. Her fingers were long and graceful. She picked up the basics quickly. But she played mechanically, technically perfect, emotionally empty. Nathan would watch her play a Chopin nocturne with flawless precision and zero feeling. It was like watching a robot. He realized that Sarah had locked away her emotions so deeply that even music couldn't reach them. Not yet. David was the opposite. He couldn't focus for more than 30 seconds. He'd start a scale and then stop. Ask a question. Make a joke. Play a random key. Nathan tried traditional teaching methods. Sit still. Pay attention. Practice. But it didn't work. David's brain didn't work that way. So Nathan changed his approach. He turned lessons into games. He'd challenge David to see how fast he could play a scale. He'd let David improvise, make up silly songs, anything to keep him engaged. Slowly, David started to improve. Not because he was practicing, but because he was having fun. Emma was the most challenging. She was terrified of making mistakes. Every time she hit a wrong note, she'd freeze. Her hands would shake. Tears would fill her eyes. Nathan had to be incredibly gentle with her. He'd sit beside her at the piano. Not too close. He didn't want to scare her. And he'd say, "It's okay. There are no wrong notes here. Just learning." He never raised his voice, never showed frustration. Week after week, Emma's fear started to ease. She began to trust him, just a little. Tommy was the one who almost quit. For the first month, he barely tried. He'd sit at the piano with his arms crossed, refusing to play. Nathan would ask him to practice a simple melody. Tommy would bang on the keys, making noise instead of music. It was his way of saying he didn't care. He didn't need this. He didn't need anyone. Nathan could have given up on him. Most people would have. But Nathan remembered what Father Michael had said. These kids needed someone who didn't give up. So he didn't. One Thursday afternoon in November, Nathan arrived at St. Mary's and found Tommy sitting alone in the common room. The other 3 kids hadn't arrived yet. Tommy was staring out the window, his jaw clenched. Nathan could see he'd been crying. Not recently, but the evidence was there in his red-rimmed eyes. Nathan didn't say anything. He just sat down at the piano and started to play. Not a lesson piece, not a cheerful melody. He played something raw, something honest. A piece he'd written years ago after Helen's diagnosis. It was called The Things We Lose. He'd never played it for anyone. It was too personal, too painful. But in that moment, he felt like Tommy needed to hear it. The music was slow, melancholic, full of longing and grief. It wasn't about being sad. It was about acknowledging that sadness exists, that loss is real, that it's okay to feel it. When Nathan finished, he looked over at Tommy. The boy's walls had cracked. Tears were streaming down his face. He wasn't trying to hide them anymore. He looked at Nathan and said, "Why did you play that?" Nathan said, "Because sometimes we need to feel sad, and that's okay." Tommy nodded. He wiped his eyes. And then he said, "Can you teach me to play like that?" From that day forward, Tommy was all in. He practiced harder than anyone. He wanted to learn how to express what he felt, how to take the anger and the pain and turn it into something beautiful. Nathan taught him. And slowly, Tommy transformed. The anger didn't disappear, but it found a new outlet. By January of 1984, all 4 kids were progressing. Sarah was learning to put emotion into her playing. David was channeling his energy into rhythm and improvisation. Emma was gaining confidence. Tommy was pouring his heart into every note. They weren't just learning piano, they were healing. And so was Nathan. By the spring of 1984, something remarkable had happened. The 4 kids had bonded, not just with Nathan, but with each other. Sarah, David, Emma, and Tommy became inseparable. They'd practice together, encourage each other, celebrate each other's progress. For the first time in their lives, they felt like they belonged to something. Nathan noticed the change. Sarah smiled more. David's restless energy had purpose. Emma's fear was fading. Tommy's anger had softened into determination. And the music they created together was extraordinary. Nathan started teaching them ensemble pieces. Music written for multiple pianists. It required coordination, communication, trust. All things these kids had lacked. But they rose to the challenge. They'd spend hours practicing together, working through difficult passages, laughing when someone made a mistake, supporting each other when frustration set in. Nathan didn't just teach them technique. He taught them the soul of music. He'd talk about the composers, who they were, what they were feeling when they wrote each piece. He'd explain how Chopin was homesick when he wrote his nocturnes, how Beethoven was going deaf when he composed his later sonatas, how Debussy wanted to paint pictures with sound. He taught them that music wasn't just notes on a page. It was emotion, story, connection. And the kids absorbed it all. Sarah, with her analytical mind, started to understand the structure and meaning behind each piece. David, with his natural rhythm, found joy in the playful compositions. Emma, with her gentle soul, gravitated toward the soft, lyrical melodies. Tommy, with his intensity, connected with the dramatic, passionate works. But the real breakthrough came in May of 1984. The staff at St. Mary's was planning a small event, a spring recital, just for the kids and a few local donors. Nothing fancy. Father Michael suggested that Nathan's students perform. Nathan was hesitant. He didn't want to put pressure on the kids, didn't want them to feel like they had to prove anything. But when he asked them, all 4 wanted to do it. They wanted to show what they'd learned, what they'd become. Nathan chose the perfect piece. Debussy's Clair de Lune, arranged for 4 hands, actually 8 hands. All 4 kids would play together on 2 pianos positioned side by side. It was ambitious, difficult. But Nathan believed they could do it, And more importantly, they believed they could do it. They practiced for 6 weeks, every Tuesday and Thursday, and some Saturdays too. Nathan would listen and guide, correcting timing, adjusting dynamics, encouraging them when they stumbled. The kids poured everything into it. This performance meant something. It was proof that they mattered, that they could create something beautiful. The night of the recital arrived. It was held in the St. Mary's Gymnasium. Folding chairs were set up. Maybe 50 people attended. Staff members, a few donors, some local community members. Father Michael. The kids were nervous. Sarah kept flexing her fingers. David couldn't stop pacing. Emma looked like she might be sick. Tommy's jaw was clenched so tight Nathan thought he might crack a tooth. Nathan gathered them before they went on. He said, "You've already succeeded. You've worked hard. You've supported each other. You've grown. Whatever happens out there tonight doesn't change that. I'm proud of you, no matter what." The 4 kids walked onto the stage. Sarah and Tommy at one piano, David and Emma at the other. The room fell silent. Nathan sat in the front row, his heart pounding. And then they began to play. The opening notes of Claire de Lune floated through the gymnasium. Soft, delicate. Sarah started the melody. Her touch was perfect. Then David joined in with the harmony, his rhythm steady. Emma added the counter melody, her fear replaced by focus. And Tommy brought in the bass line. Deep and resonant. They played as one. Not 4 separate kids, but a single entity. The music swelled and softened, rose and fell. It was 3 minutes and 47 seconds of pure beauty. And when the final note faded into silence, the entire room was in tears. The audience erupted in applause. People stood. They cheered. The kids looked at each other in disbelief. They'd done it. And more than that, they'd felt it. For the first time, they understood what Nathan had been teaching them. Music wasn't just about playing the right notes. It was about connection, about expressing what words couldn't say. Nathan walked up to the stage, tears streaming down his face. He pulled all 4 kids into a hug, and he whispered, "You just changed your lives. Remember this moment. Remember that you're capable of anything." And they did remember. For the rest of their lives, they would remember that night. The night they stopped being broken. The night they became whole. For the next 18 months, life at St. Mary's continued. Nathan came every Tuesday and Thursday. The 4 kids progressed rapidly. They started learning solo pieces, more complex ensemble works. Nathan even began teaching them basic music theory, how to read chord structures, how to compose simple melodies. The kids thrived. And Nathan found purpose again. Teaching them had filled the hole that Helen's death had left. But in December of 1985, everything fell apart. The administration at St. Mary's called an emergency meeting. All staff, all volunteers. Nathan attended. He sat in the crowded conference room and listened as the director delivered the news. St. Mary's Home for Children was closing. They'd been struggling financially for years. Donations had dried up. Operating costs had skyrocketed. They'd tried everything to save it, but it was over. The orphanage would shut down in 3 months, March of 1986. The room erupted in shock. Questions, protests. What about the kids? Where would they go? The director explained that social services would place them in foster homes. They'd already begun the process. Kids would be moved as placements became available. Most would be gone by the end of February. A few might stay until March. But one way or another, they'd all be relocated. Nathan felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. He thought about Sarah. David, Emma, Tommy. Where would they go? Would they stay together? Would they be separated? He already knew the answer. Of course they'd be separated. Foster families rarely took multiple kids at once, especially not kids this age. The younger ones got adopted. The older ones got shuffled around until they aged out. After the meeting, Nathan found Father Michael. He asked if there was any way to keep the 4 kids together. Any family willing to take all 4. Father Michael shook his head. He said it was unlikely. Most families wanted babies, toddlers, not preteens with trauma. Nathan's heart sank. He asked another question, the one he'd been afraid to ask. What if I adopted them? Father Michael looked at him with sadness. He said, Nathan, you know I'd support that, but social services would never approve it. You're single. You're on a fixed income. Your house is small. They're looking for stable 2-parent households with financial security. I'm sorry. Nathan knew he was right, but it didn't make it hurt any less. Over the next few weeks, Nathan watched as kids started disappearing from St. Mary's. One by one, they were placed in foster homes. Across the state, across the country. The building that had once held 43 kids was shrinking. By mid-February, there were only 20 left, including Sarah, David, Emma, and Tommy. Nathan tried to prepare them, tried to explain what was happening. But how do you tell kids who've already lost everything that they're about to lose each other? Sarah took the news stoically, emotionless, like she'd expected it. David made jokes, deflecting the pain. Emma cried. Tommy punched a wall. And then he asked Nathan a question that broke him. Why does everyone leave? Nathan didn't have an answer. Not a good one anyway. All he could say was, I'm not leaving. No matter where you go, I'll always be here. And music will always connect us. But deep down, he knew it wasn't enough. By the end of February 1986, the placements had been finalized. Sarah was going to a foster family in Pennsylvania, a couple in their 50s. No other kids. They seemed kind enough. David was headed to Michigan, a family with 2 other foster children. They had experience. Emma was going to Oregon, a single woman who specialized in taking in traumatized kids. And Tommy was placed with a family in Texas, a ranch. They wanted a boy who could help with the work. 4 different states, 4 different lives. No way to stay in touch. This was before cell phones, before email, before social media. Once they left, that was it. Their final day at St. Mary's was March 15, 1986. Nathan knew this was the last time he'd see them. He asked permission to have one last lesson, just the 5 of them. The staff agreed. They set up the common room. The old upright piano still stood in the corner. Out of tune, missing keys. But it had been their piano, the place where everything started. Nathan arrived early. He brought something with him. 4 folders, each one containing handwritten sheet music, pieces he'd chosen specifically for each child. For Sarah, he'd written out Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, a piece about longing and beauty. For David, he'd chosen a jazzy Scott Joplin rag, playful and energetic. For Emma, Schumann's Traumere, a dreamy, gentle lullaby. For Tommy, Beethoven's Pathétique Sonata, passionate and intense. But that wasn't all. Inside each folder, Nathan had written a personal note, words he needed them to remember. The 4 kids arrived together. They'd been inseparable for the past week, knowing their time was running out. When they walked into the common room and saw Nathan at the piano, they knew this was it. The end. Nathan didn't waste time with small talk. He said, I want each of you to play one last piece for me, the piece I've chosen for you, and then I have something to give you. Sarah went first. She sat at the piano, opened the folder, saw the Chopin Nocturne, her favorite composer. She placed her hands on the keys and began to play. The melody was achingly beautiful, sad but hopeful. She played it perfectly. But this time there was emotion, real raw emotion. When she finished, tears were streaming down her face. She looked at Nathan and whispered, "Thank you." David went next. He saw the Joplin rag and grinned. He attacked the keys with energy and joy. The upbeat rhythm filled the room. It was impossible not to smile. Even in the sadness, there was light. When he finished, he said, "I'm going to play this for the rest of my life." Emma was shaking when she sat down. She opened her folder. Saw Traumerei, a piece Nathan had played for her once when she couldn't sleep during a lesson. She took a deep breath and played. Soft, gentle. Every note a whisper. It was the most confident she'd ever been. When she finished, she looked at Nathan and said, "I'm not scared anymore." Tommy was last. He sat at the piano with his jaw clenched, fighting back tears. He opened the folder, saw the Pathétique. He'd heard Nathan play it once. It was his favorite. He placed his hands on the keys and poured everything into it. All the anger, all the pain, all the love he'd found in this room. The music was powerful, devastating. When he finished, he couldn't hold it back anymore. He broke down, sobbing. Nathan walked over and put a hand on his shoulder. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. When Tommy composed himself, Nathan handed each of them their folder. He said, "Inside you'll find the music, but also a note. Read it when you're alone, when you need to remember." The four kids opened their folders. Nathan had written personal messages. To Sarah, "You are stronger than you know. Let music remind you that you can feel without breaking. I believe in you." To David, "Never lose your joy. The world needs your light. Keep playing, keep laughing. I believe in you." To Emma, "You are brave. You've already survived the hardest part. Music will always be your safe place. I believe in you." To Tommy, "Turn your pain into power. You have a gift, use it. Don't let anger consume you. Let music transform it. I believe in you." The four kids stood in a circle with Nathan, arms around each other. Emma was crying. David was trying not to. Sarah's face was buried in Nathan's shoulder. Tommy was shaking. Nathan said, "You promised me you'd never forget, and I'm promising you the same. No matter where you go, no matter what happens, you'll always have music, and you'll always have me, even if I'm not there." Sarah spoke first, her voice barely a whisper. "We'll find you again. Someday. I promise." David nodded. "We'll come back." Emma said, "We won't forget." Tommy looked Nathan in the eyes and said, "You saved us." Nathan shook his head. "No, you saved yourselves. I just gave you the tools." They hugged one more time, long and tight, and then it was time to go. Social workers were waiting outside. Cars were ready. Families were waiting in different states. The four kids walked out of the common room together. They looked back one last time. Nathan was standing by the piano, watching them go. He raised his hand. A small wave, and they were gone. Nathan stood alone in the empty room. The silence was deafening. He sat down at the old upright piano, and he played Clair de Lune one last time. For Sarah, for David, for Emma, for Tommy, for Helen, for himself. When he finished, he closed the lid, and he walked away. After March of 1986, Nathan tried to find them. He called social services, asked for information. They couldn't give him anything. Privacy laws, confidentiality. He tried tracking down the foster families, but he didn't have full names, didn't have addresses. This was before the internet, before search engines. If you lost touch with someone, they were gone. For the first year, Nathan held on to hope. He thought maybe one of them would write. Maybe they'd send a letter, let him know they were okay. But nothing came. The months turned into years, and slowly Nathan accepted that he'd never see them again. He continued teaching piano. But it wasn't the same. His private students came and went. Some stuck with it. Most didn't. None of them needed music the way Sarah, David, Emma, and Tommy had. None of them looked at him like he'd given them a reason to live. Teaching became just a job again, not a calling. Nathan's financial situation worsened over the years. He'd never made much money as a piano teacher, and as he got older, students became harder to find. Younger teachers with flashy websites and modern methods attracted the clients. Nathan was old school, traditional. By the time he turned 60, he was barely scraping by. Then came the health problems. A heart condition. Medication he couldn't afford. Bills piling up. He had to sell Helen's piano, the one in the living room, the one they'd bought together. It broke his heart. But he needed the money. A collector bought it for $3,000. It wasn't much, but it kept the lights on for a few more months. By 2005, Nathan was 67 years old. He'd stopped teaching. His hands had arthritis. Playing was painful. He lived alone in the same small house. No family, no close friends. Father Michael had passed away in 2001. The few people Nathan had known were gone. He spent his days reading, watching old movies, sitting in silence. Sometimes late at night, he'd think about the 4 kids, wondered where they were, who they'd become. Were they happy? Did they still play piano? Did they remember him? He'd convinced himself that they'd moved on, built new lives, forgotten the old man who taught them a few songs. And honestly, he didn't blame them. Why would they remember? What Nathan didn't know was that not a single day had passed where those 4 kids didn't think about him. Sarah arrived in Pennsylvania in March of 1986. She was 12 years old. Angry. Grieving. The foster family was kind, but Sarah kept them at arm's length. She refused to connect, refused to trust. The only thing that kept her sane was the piano. She'd play the Chopin nocturne Nathan had given her, over and over, until her foster mother noticed and enrolled her in lessons. Sarah's new teacher recognized her talent immediately. Within a year, she was entering competitions, winning. At 16, she auditioned for Juilliard. She got in. Full scholarship. She studied under some of the best pianists in the world. And by the time she was 25, Sarah Mitchell was performing in concert halls across Europe. Critics called her a master of emotional depth. What they didn't know was that every time she played, she thought of Nathan, the man who taught her it was okay to feel. David ended up in Michigan with a family that had 2 other foster kids. It was chaotic, loud, but for David, it was perfect. He threw himself into music. His foster parents bought him a keyboard. He taught himself jazz, blues, gospel. By 18, he was playing gigs at local clubs. He got accepted to Berklee College of Music in Boston, studied jazz piano. After graduation, he moved to New York, started playing sessions, recording with artists. In 2003, he was nominated for a Grammy for his work on a jazz fusion album. Interviewers always asked him who his biggest influence was, and David always said the same thing: a man named Nathan Brooks. He taught me that music is joy. Emma went to Oregon, to a woman named Carol who specialized in helping traumatized children. Carol was patient, kind. She never pushed Emma, just let her heal at her own pace, and music was part of that healing. Emma continued piano lessons. She wasn't flashy like Sarah or David, but she had something special: a gentleness, a vulnerability. She went to the Curtis Institute of Music in Philadelphia, became a chamber musician, playing intimate concerts in small venues. Her performances were described as heartbreakingly beautiful. Emma always credited Nathan. She told people, "He taught me that being gentle isn't being weak." Tommy's journey was the hardest. He went to Texas, to a ranch. The family was strict. They put him to work. Long hours, hard labor. Tommy rebelled. He ran away twice, but both times he came back. Not because he wanted to, but because he had nowhere else to go. The only thing that kept him grounded was music. He didn't have access to a piano, so he taught himself guitar, played in his room late at night, wrote songs, angry songs, sad songs, songs about loss and abandonment. At 18, he left the ranch, moved to Austin, started playing open mics. His raw emotional performances caught attention. Someone filmed him and posted it on YouTube. The video went viral. 5 million views. Suddenly, Tommy had a following. By his mid-30s, he was headlining shows. Not pop music, classical crossover. He'd play Beethoven on a grand piano in sold-out theaters. And every single performance he'd dedicated to the man who believed in me when no one else did. For 25 years, the four of them lived separate lives. They didn't know where each other was. Didn't know if the others were even alive. Until 2007. David was performing at a music industry event in Los Angeles, a charity gala. After his set, a woman approached him. She said, "You played beautifully. I'm Sarah Mitchell." David stared at her. The name was familiar. And then it clicked. He said St. Mary's. She nodded. They hugged, cried, spent the next 3 hours catching up. Sarah told David she'd been trying to find the others for years. But she didn't have last names, didn't know where to start. David said, "We can find them now. We have resources." They hired a private investigator. Within 6 months, they'd found Emma. She was in Boston, teaching and performing. The three of them reunited. It was emotional, overwhelming. But one person was still missing. Tommy. Tommy was harder to track. He'd changed his name, gone by T. Brooks professionally, a tribute to Nathan, though no one knew it. But in early 2008, Emma saw a poster for a concert. T. Brooks performing at Carnegie Hall. She looked at the photo. Older. Different. But she knew those eyes. They bought tickets, went to the show. And when Tommy walked on stage, they knew it was him. After the concert, they waited backstage. When Tommy saw them, he froze. And then he broke down. They were together again. All four. For the first time in 22 years. They spent that night talking, sharing their stories, their successes, their struggles. And inevitably, the conversation turned to Nathan. Did he know what they'd become? Did he know they'd never forgotten? Sarah said, "We have to find him." The others agreed. They owed him everything. And it was time to repay the debt. Finding Nathan was harder than they expected. They knew his name, Nathan Brooks, but that was all. They didn't know if he was still in Ohio. Still alive, still teaching. They hired the same private investigator who'd found Emma and Tommy. A man named Richard Chen. Wait, no. A man named Richard Sullivan. He specialized in locating people who'd gone off the grid. Richard started with public records, phone directories, property records. There were dozens of Nathan Brooks in the United States, but only one in Ohio who matched the age range. 70 years old, living in a small town called Millfield, population 3,000. Richard did more digging, found out that Nathan had been a piano teacher. Retired in 2005, lived alone. No family. Sarah, David, Emma, and Tommy received the report in November of 2007. They read it together. Nathan was alive, but he was struggling. Medical bills, financial hardship, living on a small pension. The four of them sat in silence, processing. This man had given them everything, and he was barely surviving. Sarah spoke first. She said, "We have to do more than just visit him. We have to help him. Really help him." The others agreed. They started planning. Not just a reunion, but a way to repay everything Nathan had done. A way to honor him. David suggested a tribute concert. All four of them performing together, like the old days. Sarah loved the idea, but she wanted to do more. She suggested they pay off his debts, medical bills, mortgage, whatever he needed. Emma suggested they create a foundation, something that would continue Nathan's legacy, help other kids the way he'd helped them. Tommy was quiet, and then he said, "We need to tell him he changed the world, not just our world, the world." They spent the next 4 months planning. They kept it secret. Didn't tell Nathan they were coming. They wanted it to be a surprise. They coordinated with Richard to make sure Nathan would be home. They arranged everything. The concert, the foundation, the financial support. And on March 15th, 2008, exactly 22 years after they'd said goodbye, they flew to Ohio. Nathan woke up on March 15th, 2008, the same way he woke up every day. Slowly, painfully. His arthritis was worse in the mornings. He shuffled to the kitchen, made coffee, sat at the table, alone. It was a Saturday. Nothing to do, nowhere to be, just another day. He thought about Helen. He always thought about Helen on quiet mornings, wondered what she'd think of his life now. Probably disappointed. He'd let everything slip away. The house was falling apart. He couldn't afford repairs. The roof leaked. The heat barely worked. He'd thought about selling, moving into a smaller place. But this house held memories. Of Helen. Of his students. Of the life he used to have. Around noon, Nathan heard a knock on the door. He wasn't expecting anyone. Probably someone selling something, or a neighbor asking for a favor. He shuffled to the door, opened it, and saw 4 people standing on his porch. They were dressed well, expensive clothes, confident postures. Nathan squinted. His eyesight wasn't great anymore. He didn't recognize them. One of them was a woman, tall, dark hair, kind eyes. She was smiling. She said, "Mr. Brooks, it's us." Nathan blinked. Us. The woman's smile widened. She started humming. A melody. Soft. Familiar. Clair de Lune. And suddenly Nathan's heart stopped. He knew that melody. He knew that voice. He looked closer. At her face. Older. But the eyes. Those were Sarah's eyes. He whispered Sarah. She nodded. Tears streaming down her face. Yes. It's me. Nathan's gaze shifted to the others. A man with curly hair, grinning. David. A woman with blonde hair, gentle smile. Emma. And a man with intense eyes. Serious expression. Tommy. They were all crying. All smiling. All waiting. Nathan couldn't speak. His legs gave out. He grabbed the doorframe to steady himself. Sarah rushed forward, caught him, held him. She said, "We found you. We finally found you." Nathan's mind was racing. 22 years. They'd been gone for 22 years, and now they were here, standing on his porch, grown, successful. He could see it in their faces, in the way they carried themselves. They weren't orphans anymore. They were adults, strong, confident, whole. David stepped forward. He said, "Can we come in? We have so much to tell you." Nathan nodded, unable to speak. They helped him inside, sat him down in the living room, the same room where Helen's piano used to be. The four of them sat around him, close, like they used to during lessons. And for a moment, time collapsed. They were 12, 10, 9, and 11 again, and Nathan was 45. And they were a family. Sarah spoke first. She said, "We never forgot you, not for a single day." David nodded. "You changed our lives," Emma added. "You saved us." Tommy's voice cracked when he said, "We owed you everything, and we're here to repay you." Nathan shook his head. He said, "You don't owe me anything. Seeing you here, knowing you're okay, that's enough." But Sarah smiled. She said, "It's not enough for us." Over the next hour, the four of them told Nathan their stories. Sarah talked about Juilliard, her concerts in Europe, the critics, the awards. David talked about Berkeley, his Grammy nomination, his studio work. Emma talked about Curtis, her chamber performances, the peace she'd found. Tommy talked about his YouTube video, his concerts, his fans. Nathan listened in awe. He couldn't believe it. These four kids, the ones he'd taught in a rundown orphanage, they'd become world-class musicians. But then Sarah said, "We didn't just come here to tell you about our success. We came here to thank you and to give back." Nathan started to protest, but David held up his hand. He said, "Please, let us do this." Tommy pulled out a folder. He handed it to Nathan. Inside were documents, legal papers. Nathan didn't understand. Tommy explained. "We've paid off your mortgage, every cent. The house is yours, free and clear." Nathan's hands trembled. He said, "You can't." "That's too much." Sarah pulled out another folder. "We've also paid off your medical bills. All of them. You don't owe anything." Nathan was crying now. He said, "Why? Why would you do this?" Emma said softly. "Because you gave us everything, and we want to give back." But they weren't done. David said, "We've also established a foundation, the Nathan Brooks Music Foundation. It provides free music lessons and instruments to children in foster care and orphanages. We've already partnered with 20 organizations across the country. We're funding teachers, buying pianos, giving kids the same chance you gave us." Nathan couldn't breathe. He said, "A foundation. In my name." Sarah nodded. "You're the reason we're here. The reason we succeeded. We want other kids to have that same opportunity." Tommy added, "And there's one more thing. We're performing a tribute concert next month at Carnegie Hall, all 4 of us, together, playing the pieces you taught us. And we want you there, as our guest of honor." Nathan looked at the 4 of them, these incredible people, who'd once been broken children, who'd become extraordinary. And he realized something. He hadn't just taught them music. He'd given them hope. And they'd taken that hope and built lives, careers, legacies. And now they were giving it back. He couldn't hold it together anymore. He broke down, sobbing. Sarah, David, Emma, and Tommy surrounded him, held him. And for the first time in 22 years, Nathan didn't feel alone. 1 month later, Nathan sat in the audience at Carnegie Hall. He was wearing a suit, one that Sarah had bought for him. He couldn't believe he was here, in one of the most famous concert halls in the world, about to watch his students perform. The hall was packed, 2,800 people, critics, musicians, fans, all there to see Sarah Mitchell, David Cole, Emma Harper, and Tommy Brooks perform together for the first time. The 4 of them had never played as a group publicly. This was a once-in-a-lifetime event. Nathan sat in the front row, a reserved seat with his name on it. Before the concert started, Sarah came out on stage. She walked to the microphone. The crowd fell silent. She said, "Good evening. Thank you all for being here tonight. Before we begin, I want to introduce you to someone. 25 years ago, 4 orphans walked into a room and met a piano teacher named Nathan Brooks. We were broken, lost, angry, and he didn't try to fix us. He just gave us music, and through music, we found ourselves. Everything we are, everything we've accomplished, we owe to him. Mr. Brooks, would you please stand?" Nathan's heart pounded. He stood, slowly. The entire audience turned to look at him. And then they started clapping, a standing ovation. For him. Nathan couldn't believe it. He wasn't a performer. He wasn't famous. He was just a teacher. But in that moment he realized something. Teaching was the most important thing he'd ever done. Sarah continued, "Tonight we're going to play the pieces Mr. Brooks taught us, the pieces that changed our lives, and we're dedicating this concert to him." The lights dimmed. Sarah, David, Emma, and Tommy took their places at 2 grand pianos positioned on stage, and they began to play. Clair de Lune, the piece they'd performed together 24 years ago at St. Mary's. But this time, it wasn't on an out-of-tune upright. It was on pristine Steinways. And they weren't children anymore. They were masters. The music filled the hall, achingly beautiful. Every note perfect. Every phrase filled with emotion. Nathan closed his eyes and listened. He was transported back to that gymnasium, to those 4 kids, to the moment they realized they could create something beautiful. And now here they were, creating beauty on the world's biggest stage. When they finished, the audience erupted. But the concert wasn't over. Sarah played her Chopin Nocturne, the one Nathan had given her. David played his Joplin Rag. Emma played Traumere. Tommy played the Pathétique. Each performance was flawless, breathtaking. And with every piece, Nathan cried. Not from sadness, but from pride, from joy, from the overwhelming realization that he'd been part of something bigger than himself. Midway through the concert, Sarah stood up. She walked to the microphone again. She said, "There's one more thing we'd like to do tonight. Mr. Brooks, would you join us on stage?" Nathan's eyes widened. He shook his head, but the audience started clapping, encouraging him. Sarah walked down to him, took his hand. She said, "Please, just one song." Nathan hesitated. His hands didn't work like they used to. He hadn't played in years. But Sarah's eyes were pleading, so he nodded. She helped him onto the stage, led him to one of the grand pianos. The audience was silent. Nathan sat down, placed his hands on the keys. They were shaking. He took a deep breath, and he played. The piece he'd written after Helen's death. The Things We Lose. The piece he'd played for Tommy all those years ago. His fingers were stiff. He missed a few notes, but the emotion was there. Raw, honest, real. And when he finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. The audience gave him a standing ovation. 2,800 people on their feet for him. Sarah, David, Emma, and Tommy surrounded him on stage. They hugged him, and Sarah whispered in his ear, "Thank you for everything." After the concert, there was a private reception. Just Nathan and the four of them. They sat in a quiet room backstage, eating, talking, laughing. It felt like old times, except instead of a run-down community center, they were in Carnegie Hall. And instead of children, they were successful adults. But the bond was the same. David raised a glass. He said, "To Mr. Brooks, the man who taught us that music isn't just notes, it's life." They all clinked glasses. Nathan smiled. He said, "I didn't teach you that. You taught me." Sarah shook her head. "You did more than teach us music. You gave us hope. You showed us we mattered. Do you know how rare that is? Most people looked at us and saw broken kids, damaged goods, but you saw potential. You saw us." Emma added, "I was terrified of everything, and you were patient. You never pushed. You just let me grow at my own pace. I think about that every time I teach now, how important it is to meet people where they are." Tommy's voice was thick with emotion. He said, "I was so angry. At everyone. At the world. And you didn't try to fix me. You just gave me a way to channel it, to turn it into something beautiful. That's why I play. Every time I sit at a piano, I'm honoring you." Nathan wiped his eyes. He said, "I was lost when I met you. I'd lost Helen. Lost my purpose. And then Father Michael brought me to St. Mary's. And you four saved me, not the other way around." Sarah smiled. She said, "Then we saved each other." They talked for hours about the foundation, about their plans. Sarah explained that they'd already raised $2 million. They were opening music programs in 30 cities, providing instruments, hiring teachers, giving scholarships. David said, "We want to reach thousands of kids like us, who need music, who need someone to believe in them." Nathan asked, "What do you need from me?" Tommy said, "We want you to be part of it, to help us choose the teachers, to guide the program. You know what works, what doesn't. We want your wisdom." Nathan was overwhelmed. He said, "I'm 70 years old. I don't know how much help I can be." Emma took his hand. She said, "You can be exactly who you are. That's all we need." Nathan agreed. And for the first time in years, he felt like he had a purpose again. He wasn't just existing, he was contributing. He was making a difference. Over the next 2 years, Nathan worked closely with the foundation. He traveled to different cities, met with teachers, observed programs, And most importantly, he met the kids. Hundreds of them. Foster kids, orphans, kids from broken homes, and he'd tell them the same thing he'd told Sarah, David, Emma, and Tommy. Music doesn't fix everything, but it helps. And it did help. The foundation grew. By 2010, they'd reached over 5,000 children. Some of those kids went on to study music professionally. Others just found joy in it, a way to cope, a way to heal. But all of them were better because of it. Sarah, David, Emma, and Tommy visited Nathan regularly. They'd fly in for weekends, have dinner, play piano together. Sometimes they'd perform at foundation events, and every time Nathan would sit in the audience and marvel at what they'd become, at what they'd built, he realized something profound. Legacy isn't about what you accomplish yourself. It's about what you inspire in others. He'd taught 4 kids how to play piano, and they'd taken that gift and multiplied it. They'd touched thousands of lives, and those lives would touch thousands more. An endless ripple. In the summer of 2010, Nathan turned 72. His health was better. The medical bills were gone. The stress was gone. He was living comfortably, thanks to Sarah, David, Emma, and Tommy, but more than that, he was happy. Truly happy. For the first time since Helen died. The foundation held its annual gala in New York. A fundraiser, a celebration. Over 1,000 people attended. Nathan was the guest of honor. Sarah gave a speech. She talked about the power of kindness, the importance of mentorship, the way one person can change the trajectory of a life. She said, 25 years ago, Nathan Brooks spent 2 hours a week teaching 4 orphans how to play piano. He didn't do it for recognition. He didn't do it for money. He did it because he saw kids who needed help, and he helped. That's all. But that simple act changed everything. It changed us. And through us, it's changing thousands of other kids. That's the power of showing up, of caring, of believing in someone. The audience applauded. Nathan sat at his table, tears in his eyes. After the speech, a young girl approached him. She was maybe 10 years old, shy, nervous. She said, "Mr. Brooks, I'm in the music program in Chicago. My teacher says you started all this." Nathan smiled. He said, "I just played piano. Your teacher is the one helping you." The girl shook her head. She said, "But you're the reason." "Thank you." And in that moment, Nathan understood. This was bigger than him, bigger than Sarah, David, Emma, and Tommy. This was about every kid who'd ever felt alone, every kid who needed something to hold on to, every kid who just needed someone to believe in them. Nathan lived 4 more years. He passed away peacefully in 2014 at the age of 76. Sarah, David, Emma, and Tommy were all there. They held his hand, played music for him in his final hours. Claire de Lune, one last time. And when he took his final breath, he was smiling. Because he knew his life had mattered. At his funeral, over 1,000 people attended. Students, teachers, kids from the foundation. Sarah gave the eulogy. She said, "Nathan Brooks taught us that you don't need to be rich to be generous. You don't need to be famous to be important. You just need to care, to show up, to give what you can." He gave us music, and we gave it to the world. That's his legacy. And it will live on forever. The Nathan Brooks Music Foundation is still operating today. It's reached over 50,000 children. Many of them have gone on to become musicians, teachers, artists. But even the ones who didn't pursue music professionally carry something with them. A love of beauty, a belief that they matter, a memory of someone who cared. Because that's what Nathan gave them. Not just piano lessons, but proof that kindness matters, that small acts accumulate, that one person in the right moment can change everything. You never know whose life you're touching. You never know what impact your kindness will have. Nathan didn't know that teaching 4 orphans would lead to a foundation that helps thousands. He just did what he could, with what he had, where he was. And that was enough. More than enough. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of the power of kindness, then do something about it. Reach out to someone who needs help. Mentor a kid. Volunteer. Teach. Give. You don't need to start a foundation. You don't need to change 1,000 lives. Just change one. That's all it takes. Because somewhere out there, there's a Sarah, a David, an Emma, a Tommy, waiting for someone to believe in them, waiting for someone to show them they matter. Maybe that someone is you. Music connects us. Kindness connects us. And small acts done with love can echo through generations. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed it, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, you never know whose life you're changing, so choose kindness, always.